Welcome to IAS project. In this video, we will be learning about Neolithic Age. This is our second video for Neolithic Age. If you want to watch the first video, you can click on the link on the top right corner of your screen. Before we go into the lecture, let me ask you a question. With reference to Kashmir Neolithic culture, select the correct answer. 3 statements have been given here and the question is, which of the above statements are correct? You will learn about the answer for this question in this video. You can pause this video and answer the question. We have talked about some features of Neolithic Age in our previous video. We have talked about advent of agriculture, animal domestication, and Neolithic pottery in our previous video. Now let's look at the stone tools that were used in Neolithic Age. Generally speaking, advancements were made in the technology of stone tools. In Neolithic Age, the stone tools used were polished, pegged and ground stone tools. What do we mean by this? The word polished means that the surface of the stone tool was smooth. And how did they make the surface smooth? They did it by grinding. Before grinding, to make the stone tool, they used pecking. Let's try to understand about pecking. Before final form of the stone tool is achieved, we make a rough stone tool. Once this rough stone tool is made, what happens is, for example, this is the rough stone tool, okay? Now, once this is made, we use another small stone and using this small stone, we start hitting on the irregular edges. Because of the repeated blows, we hit it almost like hundreds or thousands of times even. Because of that, what happens is the surface starts to become a little bit smooth like this. I hope you understand. This is called as pecking. Pecking is not a one-time process. We hit this stone using this smaller but harder stone almost hundreds or thousands of times, and the impact every time is small, but the number of impacts are very high. Such kind of process is called as pecking. So once pecking is done, the surface is not polished yet. It is relatively smooth, but it is not polished yet. To make the polished surface of the stone tool, what Neolithic people used to do was, they used to search for a flat stone, and on this flat stone, they used to throw some sand. They also used to throw some water here, water and sand. And then this stone tool was ground on this stone which had water and sand over it. So because of this grinding, what happened was the surface of the stone tool became polished. I hope you understand the process. Initially, a rough stone tool was made and using another small but hard stone, the rough stone tool was hit hundreds or thousands of times. And this process was called as pecking. And once the pecked hand tool was made, grinding was performed on this using sand and water. And because of this repeated grinding, the surface of the stone tool now became polished. So this was how polished, pecked and ground stone tools were made in Neolithic Age. This is very important from the point of view of prelims exam because polished stone tools started to be used only during Neolithic Age. Before Neolithic Age, polishing of stone tools was not done. So what were the most important tools of Neolithic Age? Stone celts were important tools of Neolithic Age. Celts are nothing but polished axe heads. So we can call stone celts as the characteristic stone tools of Neolithic Age. Let's look at what stone celts were. So basically, these are the stone celts. If you look on the surface, you can see that this is very smooth. Therefore, it is called as a polished surface. Similarly, here also. So these are called as stone celts, okay? These are basically axe heads. These are different from hand axes that were used in lower Paleolithic because the hand axes were caught with hand and then used as a stone tool. But stone celts were not used with hand. What they used to do was, for example, let's say if this was a stone celt, what they used to do was, they used to make a wooden handle, something like this. Once a wooden handle was made, they used to tie this wooden handle onto this stone celt. Now this arrangement was used as an axe. So this was one way how stone celts were used. Please note that they were not similar to hand axes which were used in lower Paleolithic Age. Neolithic people also used bone tools. Moreover, Neolithic people also used mortars and pestles mainly for grinding grain and other plant produce. Let's look at what mortars and pestles are. A very good picture of mortar and pestle is given here. Mortar and pestles are still used in our homes even today. mainly to grind masala in the kitchen. So mortar and pestle has mainly two parts. The bottom part is called as mortar and this part is called as pestle. So you hold the pestle using your hand and you put, let's say, some food grains in the mortar and then you grind them. So this is how the first mortars and pestles were invented in the Neolithic age. And these mortars and pestles were used to grind food grains as well as other plant produce. Now, if we talk about stone cells, the type and technology of stone cells was different in different regions of India. For example, in the northwestern region, they had regular axis with a curved cutting edge like this, curved cutting edge. But in the case of northeastern group, the polished stone axes were usually having a rectangular butt, something like this. Similarly, the southern group of axes had oval sides and pointed butt. This was basically sharp. You don't need to remember which area had which type of stone celt. What you need to remember is that different type of stone celts were used in different regions in India. That is all what is important for our exam. Even in this picture, you can see that these are different. For example, this stone celt has a pointed butt. But here the butt is rectangular. Here the butt is oval. Similarly, here it is curved edge. But here it is rectangular edge. So stone celts had different designs in different regions. The next feature of Neolithic age was house construction. Previously, in Mesolithic age and Paleolithic age, houses were not built. People were living in caves and rock shelters. However, in the case of Neolithic age, for the first time, mud and reed houses were built. This is basically a mud and reed house. If you look here, the walls of the house are made with mud and the roof of the house is made with reed or some other plant-based material. So in the Neolithic age, the most common type of houses were mud and reed houses. However, in different regions of the subcontinent, house building technology was a little bit different. For example, if we look at the northwestern part of the subcontinent, example is Mehergarh in Balochistan. These people here built stone houses. In the case of Kashmiri Neolithic culture, for example, we have two sites, Burzahum and Gufkral. These people built dwelling pits, which are also called as pit houses. Pit houses looked something like this. Okay, basically, if this is ground, most of the part of the house was built underground. Okay, and from here a small ceiling was developed like this. This ceiling was usually supported by a wooden pillar. So this is where the people lived. So most of the house was actually below the ground. That is why these are called as pit houses. One of the reasons for building pit houses and not mud and reed houses in Kashmir could be that the region is very cold. That is why if you are living inside the ground, the warmth could be preserved. Apart from that, Kashmiri Neolithic people also used polished tools of stone. They used numerous tools and weapons which were made of bone. So polished stone tools as well as bone tools were highly used in Kashmiri Neolithic culture. However, they did not use microliths because we did not find any evidence of microliths from both these sites, that is Gufkral and Burzahum, which are basically Kashmiri Neolithic sites. Another type of construction which was mainly found in South India was ash mounds. Why the Neolithic age people of South India built ash mounds is not clear even today, but we know how they were built. What they did was they took wood, animal dung and animal remains and they piled it up like this. Once they were piled in a group, then they were burnt. That is how these ash mounds were built. These ash mounds were also sometimes called as cinder mounds. These ash mounds are mainly found in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu regions today. For example, in Karnataka, we find ash mounds in Bellary region. So this is how construction of Neolithic age people was different compared to Mesolithic as well as Paleolithic people. Because for the first time, houses were constructed in Neolithic age. In Neolithic age, cotton was also grown for the first time. So because of growing of cotton, cotton fabric was made, and with that cotton fabric, they made cotton clothes. So Neolithic people wore cotton clothes as well as woolen weaved clothes. Previously, Mesolithic people and Paleolithic people were mainly wearing animal hides. So Neolithic people also continued to use animal hides. But during this period, cotton clothes and woolen weaved clothes were also developed. Moreover, Neolithic people used cattle for transportation also. They not only raised cattle for their meat but also used cattle for transportation. However, this was not the case in the initial days of the Neolithic age. We must remember here that wheels for transportation were not invented during this period. So, bullock carts or any kind of other carts were not invented in this period. One kind of wheel was, however, invented. What was that wheel? It was potter's wheel. So, they invented potter's wheel for making pottery, but they did not use this wheel for transportation. I hope this is clear. So, Neolithic people used potter's wheel but not transportation wheel. Moreover, horse was probably not known to the Neolithic people of India because we do not have evidences of horse bones from Neolithic period or even before that. Another important feature of Neolithic age was the community living. What happened because of agriculture was self-sufficient communities emerged. What do we mean by self-sufficient community is within the community you will get everything for a person to live. You will get food, you will get clothing as well as you will get shelter. This is why community living developed in Neolithic age. And the main reason for this was cultivation of plants and herding of animals, which started only in Neolithic age. Because of cultivation of plants and herding of animals, Neolithic people moved relatively less when compared to Mesolithic people. We know that Mesolithic people and Paleolithic people were mainly hunters and gatherers. However, for Neolithic people, the important source of food was cultivation of plants and herding of animals. Therefore, we can say that Neolithic age people relatively led a settled life compared to Mesolithic people. Please observe the word relatively here, because when we talk about Chalcolithic people or Bronze Age people, we will say that Bronze Age people led relatively more settled life than Neolithic age people. So as time goes on, people started to live a more and more settled life. So compared to Paleolithic people, Mesolithic people relatively led a settled life. But Mesolithic people were still hunters and gatherers, so they moved into different places for hunting animals. Compared to Mesolithic age people, Neolithic age people were more settled because their main focus was cultivation of plants. Because of cultivation of plants, they had to stay within an area for longer periods of time. And this is how it progresses. Chalcolithic people will be more settled than Neolithic. Bronze Age people will be more settled than Chalcolithic people. Iron Age people will be more settled than Bronze Age people. However, there is a difference between the agriculture that is being done today and the agriculture that was being done in Neolithic age. Because Neolithic people did a kind of shifting cultivation. They did not practice a settled cultivation. Because of the shifting type of cultivation, what happened was once the soil lost its fertility, they moved into a different area. That is why they were still considered as nomads. Nomad means simply wanderers. So even after performing cultivation, they were nomads. And their cultivation was mainly shifting type of cultivation, which is also called as jum or jumming. I hope this is clear. Another important feature of Neolithic age was the megalithic architecture. Mega means large and lithic means stone. So megalithic architecture is nothing but large stone architecture. Around the world, megalithic architecture or megalithic monuments actually started in Neolithic age. However, in the case of India, Iron Age is associated with megalithic construction. In case of India, we find megaliths almost in entire Indian subcontinent. However, we must note that megaliths are mostly present in southern India, especially in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. So if there is a prelims question where there is one statement like megalithic architecture is only found in southern India, then that would be false, because megalithic architecture is found everywhere within India. However, most of the megalithic construction is in South India. If we look at the type of megalithic architecture, there are generally two types of megalithic architecture. Although sometimes the distinction is not clear. One type of megalithic architecture has been built, but it has been used for second purpose. So please take this with a grain of salt. The first type of megalithic architecture was called as sepulchral monuments. It simply means that those megalithic monuments which were used as burial sites of Neolithic age people. Examples of sepulchral monuments are dolmenoid cists, cane circles, and capstones. The other type of monument was obviously the monuments which were not used for burial sites. Those kind of monuments were called as non-sepulchral monuments. Examples of non-sepulchral monuments is menhirs. At this point of time, we are not going into what are all these, because as I just stated, in the case of India, Iron Age is associated with most of the megalithic construction. So we will talk about megalithic architecture in detail when we study Iron Age. So what you need to remember is, at the world stage, megalithic architecture is associated with Neolithic Age. But in the case of India, megalithic architecture is associated with Iron Age. Even today, some tribes like Gonds, who are majorly present in central India, and tribes like Khasis, who are present in Meghalaya, still have certain elements of megalithic culture. So that is why we can say that megalithic culture is still surviving even today within some tribes of India. If you like this video, please subscribe to IAS Project and IAS Project Hindi. You can download this presentation as well as notes on our Telegram channel, that is IAS Project. Thank you.